Welcome back, class. We're at week 2 of our class, and this week you also have a quiz, so be mindful of that. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in contact with me. This week we're only doing 2 chapters, which is kind of nice. We're on chapter 4 and chapter 5. We're going to be looking at Alfred Adler and Karen Horney, which are 2 different theorists that look at personality. So starting with Adler, he was born in 1870 and he lived till 1937. He lived in Austria. And again, a lot of these theories that we've talked up thus far have been all in the same time period. So you can imagine all that was going on in regards to psychology during this time. He was sick as a child, jealous of his older brother, feelings of inferiority, and compensation for weakness through persistence. Adler studied medicine, neurology, and psychiatry. He discussed ideas but did not study with Freud, and was a critic of Freud's theory and had interpersonal conflict with Freud. So you either loved Freud or you kind of did it. So inferiority feelings, the source of human striving, normal condition of all people is to not want to feel inferior. Granted, you've got to remember Adler felt inferior most of his life. So what do people do to compensate for inferiority? There's motivation to overcome it. Inferiority may be real or imagined, and it's a part of your environment. So some of the complexes, inferiority complex, which we all know people that have inferiority complexes. Inability to overcome for normal inferiority, and low self-concept, helpless. And superiority complex is overcompensation for normal inferiority, and self-centered degenerates others. So we probably know people in both of these categories, unfortunately. Striving for superiority, urge toward perfection or completion. Not an attempt to be better than others. So some of you may think like, wow, that's a really good concept, which we, from a Christian perspective, we know we're never going to be perfect. So some like striving for perfection may not be a good ideal, but again, this is his thought. Fictional finalism, imagined or potential goal that guides behavior. Style of life, unique structure, pattern of striving, influenced by social environment. Creative power of self, ability to create an appropriate style of life. So this is his concept of one's living and how that may affect personality. So this little diagram here is the styles of life. So he sees 4 different styles of life. There's the dominant, attacking. There's the avoiding, ignores problems. There's the getting, dependent, and socially useful, which is cooperative. Social interest, initiate potential to cooperate to achieve goals. So I'm not even going to attempt to say that word, but it's the community feeling, and it focuses on community interest, which is, again, like very kind of more of a selfless concept, not just it's all about me. Adler was huge in birth order, which there's a lot of great theories that come from this. There's a great book. And I think there's a lot of truth to birth order, me personally. But you got to remember, he felt inferior to his brother. So this is where this is coming from. You know, nobody wants to be a therapist or be in psychology without having some sort of experience. I'm not saying it has to be traumatic, but just some sort of experience to really feel like, wow, I really want to help others in this regard, right? That's what shapes us. That's what inspires us. And so a lot of these theorists, some of their focus is based upon their own experiences and maybe feelings that they themselves would want to change in themselves. So there's another book by, I think it's Robert Lehman, Dr. Lehman, and he does a birth order book that I feel like is pretty spot on to most people. So sequence of sibling births is a major social influence and helps shape style of life, which we all know based on your own experience. Some of you may be a firstborn, a secondborn, a youngest born child, or an only child. And there's certain dynamics in your family as a result of that. So the firstborn child, focus of attention, then dethroned by, of course, the secondborn. And then the battle to be supreme. And usually the characteristics, according to Adler, are intellectually developed, organized, authoritarian, insecure, potentially, and hostile towards others. The secondborn, older sibling as past sister, Competition may motivate. Characteristics: optimistic, competitive, ambitious, give up on tasks potentially, an underachiever. Youngest child, pet of the family, fast development to surpass others, high achievers, if pampered, dependent. And an only child, remain the focus of attention, spend more time with adults, mature easily, disappointed when not the center of attention. So again, he actually comes up with some personality tests that kind of focus in on some of this stuff. And some of you may be like, well, I'm a second born and I'm not like that. And that's fine. This is based on his thoughts. Or I'm an eldest child and I'm not like that. And in the other book I was talking about that discusses birth order, there's a lot of factors too that cause maybe someone that would seem to be the eldest to not be the eldest based on situations or maybe space in years or things of that nature. So there's a lot that goes into this other than just, looking at these 4 little characteristics. But these again are his thoughts. So this is his assessment method. Early recollections, using themes of early memories to reveal primary interests. So again, doctors had early memories of illness, so then that may be that causes them to want to be doctors. Dream analysis, feeling about current problem, and the interpretation requires knowledge of the person and style of life. So you can't just base it on just what you think it could mean. Like, you have to actually know this person to analyze the dream. So measures of social interest. Adler, against use of tests, so he didn't really like tests and relied on therapist's intuition. So later psychologists introduced the social interest scale and the basic Adlerian scales for interpersonal success. I only pressed the wrong button there, so if there's a delay, I apologize. So these were some of his influences: depression in neglected children, anxiety in neglected children, low self-esteem and lack of empathy in pampered children, and high social interest, low on depression, anxiety, and hostility, happy and agreeable. Birth order, of course, firstborns, intelligent and hardworking, low depression and anxiety, high self-esteem. Secondborns, influenced by older siblings, take risks, and onlyborns, high intelligence and industrious. And then these were his contributions. He influenced theorists in multiple areas of psychology, including Freud. Equality of women, organic inferiority, and birth order were some of his main ways he contributed to psychology. So that is Adler. Now, the next that we're going to talk about is Karen Horney, who, I pulled up the same one, who was a female, obviously, and she took some of Freud's thoughts. She liked them, but she didn't agree with all of them, which is fine. So this is, again, some of her life. Again, same era here. 1885 to 1952, born in Germany. Father was very strict and religious, and he, I believe, was like a sailor or something. So he was kind of in and out of the home. Mother was spirited and free-thinking, felt rejected by both parents, and envied brother because he was a male. She really looked at the search for love versus career, which a lot of women struggle with. Depression in adulthood, relationship. She had a relationship with Erich Fromm, began Freudian psychoanalysis, turned to self-analysis, and founded psychoanalytic associations. Childhood need for safety. So safety need security and freedom from fear. This is what children need. So infant helplessness can lead to repression of hostility, arise from parental behavior, so lack of warmth and affection and guilt. Basic anxiety, pervasive feeling of loneliness and helplessness, foundation of neurosis. So this is what causes neurosis. Now, she struggled a lot with relationships, and she did not like being alone. So she kind of went from person to person. And I think this is why it's the foundation, because this was the cause of her own neurosis. Self-protective mechanism, securing affection and love, being submissive, attaining power, and then withdrawing. Neurotic needs and trends. Neurotic needs: overuse self-protective mechanisms, 10 irrational defenses against anxiety. Neurotic trends: expression of needs, 3 categories of behavior and attitudes. So neurotic trends: compliant personality, moving toward people, subordinate personal desires, and fear of rejection. We probably all see people who have some of these trends, right? Very compliant, don't go against the stream, whatever you say. Again, like a people pleaser, right? We all know people that are like that. Maybe some of you struggle with that. Aggressive personality, moving against people, maintain superiority and power, driven by insecurity, anxiety, and hostility, highly successful in work, right? These are like the people that may push over somebody else to be the top, you know. But it comes from a place, according to her, of insecurity or anger and the need to be number one. Detached personality, moving away from people, maintains emotional distance and privacy. Sense of superiority, suppresses feelings towards others. So it seems like he doesn't need other people. Neurotic needs and trends. Conflict. Neurotic trends incompatible, core of neurosis. So neurotic person, one of 3 trends is dominant, other needs in conflict and go unmet. Idealized self-image. Idealized picture of oneself unifies personality. So again, there's a oneness with self. Healthy characteristics, realistic appraisal of abilities, so you can see strengths and weaknesses, flexible and dynamic, reflects growth and self-awareness. So can see where they need to grow and see where their strengths are, which that is a healthy person. And as a therapist, you really want people to be able to be self-aware and see where they need to grow and where they are strong. So neurotic characteristics: unattainable and inflexible ideal leads to denial of self. So the tyranny of the shoulds, behaving how one thinks they should, and the externalization, projecting conflicts on the outside world. So maybe instead of taking responsibility for them. She established feminine psychology, which began in 1922 in opposition to Freud, because again, with Freud, he said women had penis envy and women really want to be men, and so Karen did not agree with this. The revision of psychoanalysis to encompass womanhood and women's roles, which again, there weren't women doing these things, so she was kind of a pioneer of this time. Feminine psychology, so the Oedipus complex, in her perspective, was not sexual, represents conflict between dependence and hostility. She'd established something called womb envy, and envy men feel toward women due to her capacity for motherhood. Okay. Flight from womanhood, the denial of femininity, women's unconscious wish to be a man, and motherhood or career, social and cultural conflict. Which, I mean, I think women today now, you know, as more and more women are being educated and having careers, this is a constant conflict of career over family or decisions. Unfortunately, women tend to have to make more so than a man, or they fall on a woman, and there is this conflict or feeling like you're not winning in both areas. Assessment, modified Freudian technique. So again, she liked a lot of the things Freud did, but she made him work for what she thought was right. The importance of relationships between analyst and patient, which an analyst is the therapist. Free association, reaction towards analysts, explains attitudes toward others. And she also did dream analysis, analyzed feelings in the dreams. And her research, she did a case study method. She looked at neurotic trends, feminine psychology, and tyranny of the shoulds, right? The neurotic competitiveness, which is the need to win at all costs. These were some of the results she found. Aggressive neurotic trend, poor school performance, mental health issues, and major in business. Neurotic competitiveness, neurotic, narcissistic, authoritarian, and low self-esteem. I would say pretty generally, when you see people that are so competitive, they're willing to win no matter what, they tend to not feel very good about themselves, typically. Reflection. So these are her contributions: large public following, common sense appeal, relevant to American culture, a major contributor to feminine psychology, and significant impact on later theorists. So again, this is week 2, a little shorter, right? Which I'm sure you won't mind. Don't forget, like I said, there's a quiz, and hopefully you already turned in your papers, and I'll try to grade them as soon as possible. and then we'll move along to week 3. Thank you so much, and you guys have a great week.